This week's Makeover Monday Viz review. I hope everyone's doing well. Andy's still in Australia, so I don't know how much he's been, participating in the conversations on Twitter, but hopefully you're all enjoying the ongoing Makeover Monday challenges, and we should get started straight away. Let me share my screen, and if you're online, say hi in the chat. So you can see here the Makeover Monday website with the data set listings. Let me just adjust it so you can see it more easily. So we are in week 12 of the year. We're looking at US Wind Turbines. Let's have a very quick look at the original. So a map with the locations, I imagine, of the wind turbines. It's the Wind Turbine database. It has a bunch of information on it and essentially a map. So we could, well, we can't really do much with it, can we? I guess we have to zoom in. Okay, anyway, we're not here to look at the original. We're here to look at your makeovers. And here we go. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and we'll go in the opposite direction this time. What's the date? It's the 22nd. So sometime whenever Andy published the data, we'll start. Oh dear, we'll start from there. Here we go. So there's the original. That is not from this week. Okay, so there is Joris. Let's have a look at what he has created. Where the wind blows. Okay, all good. So let me just get to the bottom of this. Okay, so you can hopefully see this all in full size. Hover over the windmills to see wind turbines on the map finished in that year. What does it mean, finished in that year? Does it mean finished construction? Okay, so my first thought is, it really grabs my attention because it's very colorful. I can see the wind direction, and that's quite neat. There's a lot of reloading. Oh, okay, it's complex apparently. It's a Tableau Public problem, not an our problem. And so I think it's really interesting visually. It's a bit hard to read the title because that makes me think of weekend rather than in wind, because you've got all those things in between. So we've got all those different wind direction things, but I don't really know what I'm looking at. So where the wind blows, most of what I see where the wind blows is actually over the oceans. But all the windmills, what are they called? Yeah, they're called windmills. They're turbines are all in the middle of the country. And is it really about where it blows, or is it where we have the wind turbines? I also need a bit of an instruction. So it tells me hover over the windmills to see where the turbine. Oh my god, this is so annoying. The reloading is bothering me, but that is not Joris's fault. That's not. I'm not criticizing that. It's just yeah. Anyway, why would I care when the windmills or the turbines were finished? Genuine question. Is that important? I would be. So what I expect, I guess, given that this is about wind energy, is more, how many wind turbines are in a certain place, where is most of the wind energy generated, that kind of stuff. So that is kind of what I expect. So I don't understand why I should care about where they were finished. And they're growing taller each year. Okay, wind speed usually increases at higher altitude. Is that correct? So does the wind speed increase at the altitude, or is the wind speed by default higher at higher altitude? Just for my understanding. So that's a question I would have there. Wind turbines generate more energy when they're taller. Okay, makes me think, could we just stick them on a hill? The size of turbines also brings new challenges. So what I don't understand is this information. How does that connect to how many were built per year? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take away from this. Is it just about how many were built? And all my attention is drawn to the very like the green, red, orange, yellow areas because there's more movement happening. But all the turbines are in the middle of the country, not the middle of the country, but in the country rather than in the ocean. So visually really interesting, but I can't make sense of it. So I think there's too much going on for me. Okay. And now we're gonna go up. Okay. Makeover Monday. This is all not to do with us. There's coffee. Okay. Let's look at Mukul's. Okay, so Brittany has entered the chat. And thank you for answering Jacob's question. I can't actually see it. I only see Brittany's question and answer. So, okay. Anyhow, let's have a look over here. So, which state of the USA produces the most electricity? So that needs a bit of updating. The grammar isn't quite right there. Produces the most electricity by using wind turbines, and how? But isn't the wind turbines how it produces, or how that state produces the most electricity? It is Texas. It has the highest number of wind turbines. Okay, so why ask the question? What could it not just be about Texas? And then why do we need the other ones if it's about Texas? There's a lot going on here, but I don't know what these things mean. I don't know what T Manu and T State and T Tnum retrofit P year. I don't know what that means. So make sure when you publish something that somebody who didn't read the original article can still gain some insight from that. T State, P cap. I don't know what that means. So I will move on fairly quickly. All right, let's look at Trias Viz. Winds of Change, exploring wind turbine power production in the US throughout the years. So the one challenge with Table Republic, as far as I know, is you will never get the nice animations that you get on desktop when you just press play. So I can now make my way through about 40 years of data. Do I want to do that individually? Nope, I don't. Mainly because there's a lot of clicking and I don't know what I'm really going to get out of it. What I would suggest here visually, so I think this works if you present it and you actually have an animation. I would also recommend to make it a GIF that plays in your tweet so that people can see the actual viz, the animated viz. What I would recommend is, so you've got the map has too much going on. We don't really need all the details in Central America, like Mexico, and some of the, like, we just need the US because this is just US data as far as I know. So getting rid of that would be great. I also would recommend, so state lines and all that, that's fine, but it's extremely hard to read the font because it's one of those, I don't know what the English term is, but where you've kind of got the outline of the letters and the inside is not filled. Like, it's extremely hard to read this font. Or maybe it's gray on the inside and white on the outside, but then the data points are white. So to see those, because I'm just clicking, like, oh, and Tableau is really slow. It's very hard for me to see when the data comes until they become green and you've got a higher output, because then the color is different. So my recommendation would be to get rid of this layer in the map that gives you, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe elevation or something, or surface. I don't know what the term is. So yeah, getting rid of that. Just a very simple layer. Sorry, a very simple map. Just maybe the background blue, and then the white outlines. So coastline, state dividers, state labels, all good. Get rid of the other layers and then have your dots, but maybe start with a different color. Don't start with white. Maybe it's, some different thing. Or if it's white, then maybe the labels could be a different color so that it's easier to distinguish the data point from the background, if you see what I mean. So I can't really explore the wind turbines. I can only see where they are. And I think this relates to when they were built. So I would clarify that a little bit because, yeah, there's not really much exploration going on when, and obviously the data set, there's nothing you can do about the level of detail in that data set. But yeah, you can't really do much exploration. You get a case ID, latitude, longitude, and cap, whatever this cap is. So I would also tidy up the tooltips because they could be more meaningful. You could, you could keep the ID if you wanted. You don't really need it, but you could maybe mention what state it's in. I don't know what other data is there. Maybe, who builds it, who owns it, and what the T cap. I imagine that is a total capacity, but spelling that out, putting the units in, getting rid of the latitude and longitude details. And yeah. Okay. That is different viz. That is something else. Okay. Stanley. US Wind Turbines. Oh. So there's different measures. What I don't understand is what rotor swept area is. I imagine it is the area that is covered by the rotor sweeping. So larger wind turbines have a larger area covered. But that goes to show, please explain what those metrics are, because I don't think a layperson would know that much about wind turbines. Rotor diameter, I think that's a bit more self-explanatory. Turbine hub height in meters. Is that the middle of the rotor, or is that like the stem? Like, what's the turbine hub? So again, explain your metrics. Capacity in megawatts. So what I think it would be really useful here, and this applies to everyone, is most of us probably are not experts in, physics, electricity, and all those kind of topics. So megawatts to me is not meaningful because I don't know what that translates into. But what you could have is as a reference point and just say, okay, so for hover, so there is a wind turbine in Texas with a certain model and a certain ID, and its capacity is 2,000 megawatts. Does that mean per year, per day? I don't know. So what is that capacity in what time frame, and what does that translate into? So could this one wind turbine power a village, a city? What does that mean for us as normal people on a day-to-day basis? I think that would be really helpful to just put it into context. So, for example, you could then say, all the wind turbines in Texas combined could be used to power, I don't know, the city of Austin or something like that. Because then people are like, oh, well, okay, I get it. Right now, the capacity and the number of wind turbines to me is like interesting, but so what? Like, what do I do with it? It also looks like there's something funky going on with these lines. I don't know what those lines are doing covering the Gulf of Mexico. Like, Florida doesn't look like that, right? As far as I remember, there should be a bit of a bay. So there's, something a bit funky going on with the lines. Height of the peak. What's height of the peak? And why do I need to change that? Okay. So again, like, people need to really explain. Well, ideally, the viz is self-explanatory, and you don't need to explain how to use it or what it shows you, because that information is already there. But things like height of the peak, what's what's the peak? And what do I need to change about this? What does it give me? And that's different topic. Day 15, also different topic. Out of time, population. Oh, interesting. So Rob Redburn has created a viz, USA Wind Turbines and the distance from population. I'm going to try and open this in a new tab. See if I can zoom in a bit. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we can scroll. So everyone should have this hopefully kind of covering their screen nicely. So for every state, the white lines represent how far a county's wind turbines are from the county's population weighted center. I think I know what he means, but I do think that needs to be a bit simplified. So there are 18,000, holy moly, 18,586 wind turbines in the state of Texas. And there are a few are really far away from the population center. I guess that is partly because Texas is so large, there is so much space, so they can be put somewhere where they don't actually get so close to the cities, which, you know, sometimes people obviously oppose because they don't like the looks of them. But yeah, that's really interesting. So in California, there's not that many. But I don't quite understand the number of lines here. So in California, we've got, you know, about 6,000 wind turbines. I don't understand how to read the line itself. So I get what he says. The white line represents how far a county's wind turbines are from the county. Oh, or is it the number of counties? So it must be that each line is a county. I don't know. But surely California has more counties than that. Maybe somebody with with more knowledge of the US or this data set can tell me. Yeah, I'm not sure. In Arkansas, surely. I mean, that's just one wind turbine. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how to interpret the lines, but because it looks like yeah, I really can't make a call on that. But it is an interesting looking viz, so I'd love to understand it better. Okay. And oh yeah, we need to go up. Okay, let's have a look here. US Wind Turbines by Tamabol. Recommendation, and I know I've said this before, and I will probably say it for the rest of all eternity, is I would not name your viz Mom 2023 W12, because if somebody searches for it and that's all you have in the details, well, if they search for wind turbines, yours definitely will not come up because the search won't extend to the text in your viz, I imagine. I would be very surprised if it did. So your title and ideally the details, so the description you put in, should be more descriptive so that people can find it. Yeah, so to have your work found, that would be better. But also for yourself to see, because you're not necessarily going to search by, if you think, oh, you know, I remember doing this visualization for Makeover Monday at the beginning of the year, I really want to use it in an example. Are you going to find it this way? Or would it be easier if you said, oh yeah, I did a visualization about wind energy and it actually contains something about that? So little tip there. Click on a state to see the capacity compared to the average capacity of all other states. Okay, let's have a look at Indiana. Click the clear button to reset. So the selected state is orange. All the other states are green-ish. So somehow, okay, tooltips need tidying up, including the ones on the map, because when you use the 2-letter abbreviation, I always recommend putting the full state name into the tooltips so that people who do not live in the US and who are not as familiar with the two-letter abbreviations also know what states you're referring to. The average capacity should be spelled out nicely, and it should also include the unit, so megawatt, kilowatt, whatever it is. Now, so it looks like in this tooltip definitely is cleaned out because it doesn't even show any values. So, and it just covers a lot of the it covers most of the viz. So 2009, I think there was a big spike for whatever reason. Maybe they suddenly had more wind turbines, but then what happened afterwards? So interesting. I'm just going to click a couple more states to see. Okay, so whereas with Michigan, it seems to be more kind of parallel or aligned to the other states. What I would also suggest is in your color legend to put selected state at the top and other state at the bottom, because selected state is what I'm clearly interested in, so that should be listed first. Capacity ranked top 10. Again, so you've got to, and I'm going to call this lazy, because these kind of tidy ups need to be done like literally by default, not leaving field descriptions or calculation names or something in your viz in the user interface. Like they just no. You want to put there plain English words. So the top 10 turbine manufacturers ranked by capacity. That's what it should say instead of capacity ranked top 10. Like that's just not something that's easy to read, that looks nice. So make sure to always spell things out properly. Take that extra time. Now, I do want to briefly talk about the map, because I don't understand why we have a tile map on top of an actual map and it's not aligned. So Oklahoma certainly is not what Oklahoma is on this map. You could just use the actual map. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you could use a tile map, but you should rotate these hexagons by like one rotation to the side so that one of the tips is down. So the tips are top and bottom, rather than the flat part. I don't know how else to describe it. So they need to be tessellated. Is that the word? I haven't used it in a while. So yeah, and also with Florida, like what happened to some of the states? I don't think all of them are listed. They might not have any wind turbines, for all I know, but yeah, it just currently is very misaligned to where the states actually are. Okay, we've got a little bit more time. Okay. So Jacob, he must have asked a question because Brittany made some comments. So let's have a look at Jacob's viz. Let me just go a little bit smaller so we see the whole thing. Some states are becoming wind driven. When you say states, you should mention US states, because most countries have something related to or equivalent to states, and unless you say it's about the US, we don't know. Of course we see the map, but just to be clear, to not allow people to be confused, and also make sure your thing is named properly, your viz. Do you think, Jacob, that when I tell you some states or some US states are becoming wind driven, is it gonna make you say, oh, tell me more? Because it's quite it's not a very punchy statement. So when you think about the title of your viz, the headline, it should be like the title of a book. It makes you want to open it and read it. It's either really interesting, controversial, compelling, intriguing. Like you look at it and you're like, I want to know what this is about. And book titles, they're typically quite short. But think of titles of articles in newspapers or news websites. They have to give you enough information that you know what, or that you have some expectation of what will be in there, and it should live up to the expectation. Whatever question or something should get answered. Some states are becoming wind driven makes me say, okay, why should I care? Because it doesn't it's not like hitting me in the face with some facts. You could, you could say, I don't know. I mean, it depends a bit on the data, but US states are ramping up their wind energy, or it should be true, of course. Don't lie, don't tell people Eva told you to lie, but it's currently just not something that makes me really curious about the visit itself, because some makes it a weaker statement, and they're becoming wind driven. Well, for what? It's for their energy consumption, right? So have a bit of a think about how you can reword that. Now, I like that you have a summary. It's almost like an executive summary at the top. Move your data sources somewhere else, because this is prime, like this top left corner is prime real estate for, at least in those parts of the world where we read left to right, because we're going to start at the top of the page. We're going to read from left to right and probably like down first if it's wide like this, and then move across. Whereas while the data sources are important and it's good that you've included them, it's not something I need to know immediately. In the end, I might be like, oh, I wonder where this came from. So typically we put them at the bottom in the middle, bottom right corner, somewhere out of the way, but still visible for anyone who wants to refer to those sources. And then rather than visualizing the data and telling us what you've visualized, tell us what you found. So clearly, Texas has over a quarter of the total current wind capacity in the US. I'm assuming the numbers are correct. So maybe that makes for an interesting topic. That Texas, where, I don't live in the US, but I'm sure I speak for a few people, would think Texas isn't a very environmentally friendly state, because we think of oil, we think of people driving big trucks, we think of air conditioning and all that stuff that consumes a lot of energy. So for me, this would be really interesting to know that actually out of all the wind capacity, Texas has over a quarter of the entire country. That could be a title. And then a subtitle could be, explore, who's the next, who's the next five or something. Rather than telling me it's the states with the highest wind power capacity. Okay. But I can assume that based on the type of visualization you've got, big bubbles getting smaller bubbles. So have a think about what the story is and start with that. And then here we have wind energy as percent of total energy production. I think that needs a bit more explanation. So I'm guessing this is how much of the total energy production in the US comes from wind. And I would repeat the percentage symbol next to these numbers on the y-axis, just to make people fully aware, because it's like, oh my god, it's right, it's all the way, it's like a total, and then I look over to the right side, it's like, oh, it's 8.5% or something. So or in this case 9.2%. So just make sure that people know that, because right now it looks like, okay, couldn't really go any further, but really it's not even 10% of the total. And you could put it into perspective by making the axis go all the way to 100. Yeah. And then localization. Is it localization or is it location? It really is location, isn't it, of the wind turbines? So here you could ask a question, say, where can you find most of these wind turbines? And you have mentioned in your summary the wind belt. So point out that this, I'm guessing this north and to south corridor in the middle is the wind belt, because that to me looks like a vertical band where the wind blows. So call that out, say however you describe it, but it could be about the cluster of wind turbines in the Midwest and blah blah blah. So there's that. And then average wind speed. So again, that is interesting, and I like that you've included it. So you could then say the average wind speed, is obviously it obviously gets taken into account when it comes to the location of the wind turbines. So where the wind speeds are highest in red, that's where most of the wind turbines are built to take advantage of that. So how can you marry those two visualizations on the right side into a story that tells me, okay, clearly they've thought about where they should put these. They're going to put them where the wind speeds are highest, but also potentially where there's some elevation for them, or whatever other factors are. And then finally, in terms of formatting, these are two maps that are essentially the same, but they look different. So they're not in the same size. So I would make sure that these are exactly the same size. They finish, same place on the left side, zoomed into the same level, because the one in the bottom, it kind of cuts off on the right side. And then the style as well. So the background is removed at the top, whereas the background at the bottom is not. And that one has more data, whereas the top one is missing Florida and a couple of other states. So something to think about. I really like it. I think you've put a lot of information in there that could be, with just a few small adjustments, be turned into like a really cohesive story, and something that makes people, like, educates people on wind power. One suggestion as well is, you don't really need the icon. Like, I get why you have it in there, but maybe use that space to just space out your different charts differently, and the text, and play a little bit with that. But yeah, really good work. I like it. I'm going to close out here. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a good rest of the day. There won't be a viz review for the next couple of weeks, because next week I'm traveling. I'm in Vienna for work, and I just won't be able to do it. And the week after, I've got family visiting. So yeah, see you in April. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.